On my 56th birthday, I bought myself an expensive suit. After finishing up with my grandson, and returning to the living room, I saw Arthur wearing it. My wife, Eleanor, was even praising him, then told me to do the dishes. I stared at the messy house and said coldly, "Let's get a divorce." Eleanor looked stunned for a moment, then smiled helplessly. "Is it because Arthur wore your suit? All right, dear grandfather now. Why are you still so petty, like a child?" She brushed a stray strand of hair from my forehead, her attitude so gentle it made me feel like the unreasonable one. "Go make dinner. You know Arthur has stomach issues. He can't go hungry." The man sitting on the sofa, radiating a cool demeanor, was Arthur, Eleanor's childhood sweetheart and also the husband of her longtime friend, Eliza. There was a history between them. After his early passing, Eleanor brought him into our home to care for him. The exquisitely tailored suit looked elegant on him, enhancing his tall, refined figure. It was clear he was impeccably well maintained. I looked down at my rough, cracked hands, calloused from years of labor, and repeated, "I want a divorce." My daughter, Sophia, came out, her face full of impatience. "It's just a suit. Is it really that big of a deal?" She pulled a few $100s from her pocket, and threw it in front of me. "Consider it me buying it from you. Throwing a fit over a piece of clothing is embarrassing enough." Arthur immediately stood up, the diamond ring on his ring finger sparkling faintly. That was a gift Eleanor had given him, explaining that Arthur had remained single after his spouse's death for many years, and lived a lonely life, so she was giving it to him on behalf of his deceased wife as an anniversary gift. Yet, Eleanor and I had been married for 30 years, and she had never given me any gift. He looked apologetic. "You don't have a job, so I thought you wouldn't need this suit. I am sorry. Please don't argue because of me." His polite demeanor, expensive clothing, and perfectly chosen men's luxury watch spoke volumes. Sophia patted his hand comfortingly. "Uncle, it's not your fault. My dad is just making a fuss." The cherries on the table were a gift I'd bought for myself. Before I even had a chance to eat them, only a pile of empty pits remained. Sophia noticed my gaze and said impatiently, "You know Uncle loves cherries the most. Do you really have to argue with him over a single bite?" Arthur loved cherries the most. Every season, Eleanor would drive to the neighboring town to pick the freshest bunch, meticulously peel them, and serve them to him. When it was my turn, all that was left were the cherry skins. Arthur's favorite cherries. In 30 years of marriage, I had never tasted them. This year was no exception. Tears welled up in my eyes. I looked down at the decidedly plain-worn sneakers on my feet. They weren't pretty, but they were practical for household chores. The household wasn't short on money, but they never hired a housekeeper. The reason was that Arthur didn't like strangers in the house. When I was washing dishes, mopping floors, and taking care of the children, so exhausted I couldn't straighten my back, Arthur, accompanied by Eleanor, would dance and practice calligraphy. Both were university professors, living a leisurely and elegant life. Standing beside them, I felt like their housekeeper. The doorbell rang. It was the birthday cake I'd bought for myself. It was a small strawberry cake adorned with a few berries and 2 decorative figurines. Sophia slapped her forehead, regretting, "Look at me, I almost forgot what day it was. I already have your gift ready. Wait, I'll go get it." A ripple stirred in my lifeless heart. I thought they had remembered it was my birthday. In that moment, all of Sophia's faults were forgotten. At least she remembered my birthday, and had a gift for me. That was enough. When reappeared, she was holding a beautifully packaged men's luxury watch. I instinctively reached out. The next second, Sophia brushed past me and placed the watch on Arthur's wrist. "Uncle, congratulations on successfully joining the Writers Guild. Your long-held dream has finally come true." All joy and excitement turned into a bitter joke in that moment. Eleanor also smiled mysteriously. "I have a gift too. Guess what it is?" No need to guess. It was for Arthur too. That secret glimmer of hope shattered. I watched Eleanor pull out a set of keys and deed from behind her back. "A villa at the Lakeside, your very own house. Do you like it?" The at Lakeside, a high-end property in Willow, a single villa that would cost millions. Eleanor was a professor at Oakwood University. While her salary wasn't low, she wasn't a top-tier millionaire either. This villa likely depleted her life savings, even was moved to tears. "Eleanor, thank you. Eliza passed away early, but Sophia and I are your family. That's right, uncle, in my heart. Like my biological father, I watched the three of them embracing, my heart turning completely to ice. After the emotional moment, Sophia took it upon herself to cut the cake. 2 pieces with the figurines went to Eleanor and Arthur. She even remembered to explain to me, "Dad, today is Uncle's big day, don't overthink it," but took just 1 bite and frowned. "The taste is too sweet, and the design," he paused, his gaze sweeping over the pink strawberry cake, and softly uttered, "vulgar." Sophia immediately shot me a reproachful look. "Dad, you know Uncle doesn't like such gaudy colors." "Never mind, Uncle, I'll order you another one." The cake Sophia ordered arrived quickly, shaped like a black swan, with a rich, mellow flavor. It was infinitely better than mine. The cloying sweetness of the cream lingered on my tongue, strangely acrid. Tears fell without warning. Sophia immediately grew annoyed. "Dad, it's Uncle's big day. Can you stop being such a killjoy? It's just a suit, isn't it? I can just buy you another one." I wiped away my tears, and swallowed the last bite of cake. "No need. Today is my 56th birthday. Thank you for the cake." The air froze for a moment. Eleanor and her daughter exchanged glances. "Well, you never said anything. We didn't know it was your birthday." Arthur had never mentioned it either, yet his birthdays were always filled with endless gifts and surprises. My young grandson, Leo, was woken by the noise and cried incessantly. Sophia frowned and urged me, "Dad, Leo's awake. Go soothe him." I stood up, but instead of going to soothe my grandson, I returned to the bedroom to pack my things. Simple toiletries, 2 changes of clothes. I didn't have much. I couldn't even fill 1 suitcase. Finally, I looked at the calligraphy hanging above the bed. It used to be where Eleanor and my wedding photo hung. Then, at some unknown point, it had been replaced by this calligraphy personally written by Arthur, a poignant quote about lost love and regret. Every night, Eleanor would gaze at this quote, lost in thought. Footsteps sounded behind me. It was Eleanor. She frowned at the suitcase in my hand, her voice helpless. "Are you still angry?" Seeing me silent, she hugged my waist, and buried her head in my chest. "Our 30 years of marriage, can you really throw it away? Leo is still so young and needs your care, Arthur isn't well, and the house still needs your tireless work. David, they all depend on you. And so do I." Yes, she couldn't do without me, but she didn't love me. I suddenly remembered Eleanor when I first met her. She came from a family of intellectuals, excelled academically from a young age, got into Oakwood University, and later smoothly became a professor there. Good family background, beautiful, outstanding abilities, gentle nature, yet, such an exceptional person chose to marry me, a high school dropout, who worked in a restaurant. Everyone said I married above my station, that I wasn't good enough for her. So for 30 years of marriage, I was humble and accommodating, treating her like a goddess, never daring to defy her in the slightest. When she said she wanted to focus on her career, I didn't hesitate. I quit my job and became a stay-at-home dad for 30 years. Reaching this point, I wouldn't say there was resentment, I was just tired. I married above my station, and diligently served you for 30 years. I am tired, and I've had enough. I picked up my suitcase. As I passed the living room, I heard Arthur's uneasy voice. "Is your dad unhappy with me staying here?" "Sophia, maybe I should just leave." Sophia, while comforting the child, reassured Arthur, "It's okay, Uncle, my dad's just a stay-at-home dad. He overthinks things all day. Don't let him bother you. This is the household's house. As long as I am here, no one can kick you out." The woman stood tall, a proud gleam in her eyes. She had grown up, no longer the naive child, who used to cling to my back, calling me dad. She was Sophia, a graduate of a prestigious university, who had started her own gaming company, with a thriving career. Out in public, she was respectfully addressed as CEO Peterson. Indeed, she now had the confidence to say such a thing, without hesitation. I picked up my suitcase, and left without looking back. I had my lawyer draft a divorce agreement, and sent it to Eleanor. 10 minutes later, Eleanor's phone rang. I answered, speaking softly, "I want 30% of the marital assets, in our 30 years of marriage." Eleanor had been the main earner, but I had managed the household chores, food, and daily life. My contributions weren't insignificant. Asking for just 30% wasn't an excessive demand, My voice on the phone was calm, but the other end remained silent. David, I don't agree to a divorce. After a long pause, she spoke, her voice hoarse. In the 3 days you've been gone, the house has been a complete mess. No one to cook, no one to watch the child. He cried all night looking for you, his voice hoarse from crying. Leo was just 3 years old. He was born around the time Sophia and her husband had their relationship break down and divorced. After that, Sophia threw herself into her company, and I had been the one raising the child. Hearing he was suffering, I felt bad too, but next sentence hardened my heart. We've all grown accustomed to your presence. David, please come back. This wasn't about her not being able to live without me. It was about her not being able to live without a free and convenient housekeeper. I'll have my lawyer handle the divorce with you. If you don't agree, then we'll see each other in court. I hung up the phone decisively and contacted a tour group for seniors, with departure scheduled for tomorrow. It was a month later, when I returned from the trip. Eleanor still wouldn't agree to the divorce. I didn't care. At this age, marriage didn't hold much sway over me anymore. At the beginning of the month was Grandma's 80th birthday party, held at an upscale hotel. Grandma had always been kind to me, and not wanting to upset her, I arrived as planned on the day of the party. Eleanor was there too. Seeing me, she rushed forward to greet me. David, where have you been? Sophia and I couldn't reach you. We've been frantic. I looked at the dark circles under her eyes, and suddenly asked her, Eleanor, why did you marry me back then? The moment the question left my lips, I couldn't help but smile. Travel truly was the best way to relax and clear one's mind. After a month of freedom, my state of mind facing Eleanor was vastly different. Even topics I had always avoided and refused to mention, I could now blurt out emotionlessly, because I had no education, no family background, and was good-tempered and docile. You couldn't marry the Arthur you loved, so you married me, someone easy to control, right? She instinctively avoided my gaze, then angrily retorted moments later, Eliza and I were longtime friends. Before she died, she entrusted Arthur to me. I am caring for him out of friendship. How dare you slander us? But you never called him brother-in-law. Eleanor called him Arthur, and Sophia called him uncle. Eleanor, you love him. I looked at her pale face, and finally felt a sense of relief. It was a wrong marriage from the start. What was there to dwell on? When I returned, the birthday party had already begun. Grandma waved to me. David, come here. Sit next to me. I said nothing of the conflict with Eleanor, and sat beside her with a smile. She was the only one in the household who had ever been truly kind to me. It was her birthday party today, and I didn't want to upset her, but as if sensing the unspoken tension between Eleanor and me, she suddenly slipped off the emerald heirloom ring from her wrist, and placed it on my hand. Sophia immediately tried to dissuade her. Mom, this is the household's family jade ornament. It's very significant. David still takes care of the child, and does household chores at home. It's not suitable for him to wear jade ornaments. Sophia chimed in too. That's right, Grandma. Uncle is cultured and sophisticated. He's the one who deserves this ring. But Vivian wasn't having it. David has taken care of me for so many years, worrying and toiling for this family. This jade ornament is what he deserves. Grandma didn't even lift her head, ignoring my refusal. She firmly placed it on my hand. I may be old, but I can still make decisions for this family. As she spoke, the table suddenly shook, and cracks appeared in the wall. It was an earthquake. Eleanor and Sophia's faces changed, and they instinctively ran towards me. But upon hearing Arthur's cry of pain, they abruptly stopped, and turned to rush towards him instead. I wasn't far from the main entrance, and could have left directly, but remembering Grandma's bad legs, I gritted my teeth, turned, and carried her on my back. Rushing towards the exit, ornately decorated chandeliers crashed down, becoming deadly weapons in that moment. A second before I burst out of the banquet hall, my right leg was cut by a wire, and instantly, blood flowed profusely. I endured the pain, limping as I brought Grandma to the newly erected emergency shelter, only to have my wrist seized by Eleanor, who suddenly appeared. Arthur has a ruptured artery, and needs a blood transfusion. Only your blood type matches. Come with me, quickly. Ignoring my resistance, she dragged me all the way to the hospital. The wound on my right leg tore open, and bled during the struggle, staining my entire pant leg with blood. Nurse. IVE brought him. Quickly draw his blood to save Arthur. She forcibly pulled me to the nurse's station. The nurse, holding a needle, didn't immediately draw blood but instead asked me, "Sir, do you consent to a blood transfusion for patient Arthur, bed 42? He agrees. I don't agree." I finally pulled away from Eleanor's grip. "Eleanor, this is a society governed by law. As long as I don't consent, you have no right to force anyone to donate blood." A sharp slap, with a crisp sound. I heard Eleanor's furious voice. "Lives are at stake. How much longer will you cause trouble? David, you've disappointed me terribly." This was the first time Eleanor had laid a hand on me. I covered my swollen right cheek, yet my heart was unexpectedly calm. "You want me to save Arthur? Fine, but I have one condition." Under stunned gaze, I pushed the divorce agreement towards her. "All marital property will be mine, including the villa at the Lakeside. For the divorce, you will leave with nothing. Do you really want to leave me so badly?" Eleanor's eyes looked hurt. She hesitated, unwilling to reach for the divorce agreement. "David, we've lived together for 30 years. Even a cat or dog would develop feelings. Can you really be so cruel to me?" My thoughts suddenly drifted back many years, to when Eleanor and I had just gotten married. Back then, I was new to society and still green, and Eleanor had shown me some patience. On our wedding night, I lifted her bridal veil. Her face was beautiful, her eyes sparkling with a smile. I mustered my courage and asked her why she was willing to marry me, when I was so ordinary, when there were so many men of suitable background she could have chosen. Why she had chosen to marry me, of all people. I couldn't remember what she said, only the warm breath against my ear, calling my name with a smile. My heart pounded furiously in my chest. Looking back on this marriage, that was one of my few happy moments. With a sigh, I pushed the divorce agreement towards her again. "I married you at 21. At 26, you were kidnapped. To save you, I was stabbed 3 times, critically wounded. Before I was pushed into the operating room, I called you 16 times, 16 calls, and not one was answered. I struggled for a day and a night, wanting to see you one last time. When I was utterly exhausted, I learned it was Eliza's death anniversary that day. You were afraid Arthur would be sad, so you were with him in Norway, watching the Aurora Borealis. The Aurora in Norway, I've never seen it, but you go with Arthur to see it every year. You two have so many unique traditions, making me feel like an out-of-place outsider. Eleanor, I am truly exhausted. In 30 years of marriage, I had endured so much hardship that when I wanted to speak, I didn't even know where to begin. Sign it, let go of you, and let go of myself." Eleanor's face slowly turned ashen, but she still wouldn't sign. Then arrived. "Where's Uncle? How is he?" She arrived quickly, not bothering to hide her anxiety. Upon learning that I would only agree to the transfusion if Eleanor signed, she urged without hesitation, "Mom, what are you waiting for? Sign it quickly. This is a matter of life and death. Uncle has been so devoted to you, remaining single after his spouse's death his whole life just for you. If you don't sign, how can you face him?" Under's repeated urging. Eleanor's hands trembled as she took the divorce agreement. As the last stroke was completed, a tear fell onto the paper with a soft plink. It was Eleanor. I paused, then suddenly felt like laughing. Eleanor, seemingly gentle, was in fact cold-hearted to the core. Such a person, shedding tears over a divorce agreement. What an act! I had promised to save Arthur. I wouldn't go back on my word. The needle pierced my skin, and soon a vial of blood was drawn. Is one vial enough? Draw more if it's not. My dad is healthy. He can take it. Prioritize Arthur. Sophia, worried it wouldn't be enough, asked repeatedly. She really was concerned about Arthur. The nurse looked up, frowning. "What is your relationship to the patient? This is a hospital, not a place beyond the law. There are clear regulations on how much blood can be drawn and how it's done. If you attempt to force this gentleman again, we will call the police for his safety." The nurse spoke to her without yielding, then turned to me, her voice much gentler. "Thank you for your contribution to medicine. Here is your blood donation certificate. Please keep it safe." "Thank you." I stood up, and a sharp pain suddenly shot through my right leg. Only then did Eleanor notice the wound on my right leg. "Why didn't you say you were hurt?" Her face changed, and she tried to pull me towards a doctor. "Let's pick a time to finalize the divorce. We're not married anymore, so whether I am hurt or not is none of your concern." I pulled my hand away from hers, and limped away alone. After my leg wound was treated, I accompanied Grandma to the hospital again. She had been promptly taken away by me during the earthquake and hadn't sustained any injuries, but Grandma was old, so it was safer to have a checkup. As I passed the stairwell, I unexpectedly saw Eleanor and Arthur standing together. Eleanor, are you really divorced from David? Eleanor didn't speak. Arthur continued, since he's the one who initiated the divorce, you don't need to feel too guilty. Eleanor, you know I've been waiting for you ever since Eliza passed. Now that he divorced, there's nothing to stop us. He reached out, his long, pale fingers gently taking Eleanor's hand. Even though Eleanor quickly pulled away, Grandma, who was passing by, still saw the scene. She looked at their intertwined hands, and with her sharpness, there was nothing left for her not to understand. You two. Grandma's hand trembled as she pointed at the two in the corner, clutching her chest. Unable to speak for a long time, I tried to persuade her to leave first, but she waved me away. Move aside. This isn't your business. Mom, it's not what you think. Just as Eleanor began to explain, Grandma let out a gasp, spat a mouthful of blood, and rolled her eyes, fainting from pure anger. Now everyone present panicked. Mom, call a doctor. Fast. Grandma had fainted from overwhelming rage. Fortunately, she was in the hospital and received immediate treatment. Waking up quickly, the first thing she did upon waking was slap Eleanor. How dare you? Eleanor, how can you face the deceased Eliza? In that car accident, she died saving you. Eliza was an adopted daughter of the household, making her Eleanor's elder sister by status, and involved with your own brother-in-law like this. This is incest. If word gets out, what will become of the household's reputation? Beasts, how could I have given birth to such a beast? Grandma grew more agitated as she spoke. I quickly stepped forward to pat her back, afraid she might faint again from agitation. How can you face David? With each accusation, Eleanor was thoroughly berated, like a child who had done wrong, keeping her head down and not daring to utter a sound. Get out. Mom, Eleanor and I aren't what you think. We. Arthur grew anxious, and tried to explain, but Grandma's glare silenced him. Don't call me Mom. I am not your mother. Eliza has been gone for so many years. If you want to find someone new, I wouldn't stop you, but it absolutely cannot be Eleanor. A brother-in-law and sister-in-law, the household cannot afford such a disgrace. Grandma came from a wealthy and influential family herself. With her upbringing, she simply could not accept anything going on between Arthur and Eleanor. Starting tomorrow, you're moving out of the household. How could Grandma not be angry? After his death, she had encouraged Arthur to remarry more than once, even preparing a substantial amount of property for him, yet insisted on remaining single after his spouse's death for Eliza. Grandma was deeply moved by this. For all these years, even though she didn't particularly like Arthur, she had given him plenty of good things, even the properties left by the late Mr. Peterson. She had given 2 sets to him, but, after remaining single for so long, ended up getting involved with her youngest daughter. How could Grandma not be furious about that? She was practically fuming. Only the 2 of us remained in the hospital room. This old woman, who had been strong her entire life, now seemed utterly deflated. How long has this been going on with them? When did you find out? I answered honestly, a long time ago. I vaguely sensed something was off between them, but I just couldn't believe it. I paused, then added, Eleanor and I were already in the process of divorcing. Get divorced then. It's for the best. Eleanor, she's wronged you. Grandma's eyes welled with tears. She tightly gripped my hand. It's my fault for not raising my daughter well, for wasting 30 years of your life. David, I am so sorry. I hadn't felt sad when divorcing Eleanor, but in this moment, facing the elderly woman's reddened, remorseful eyes, I couldn't help but cry. You've been very kind to me all these years. I don't blame you. Her tears flowed even more profusely. She tremblingly pulled a box from beneath her. Opening it revealed a box full of property deeds. She pressed the box into my arms, and gently pushed me towards the door. Go now. Go. The household has wronged you. I can't bear to look at you. Back home, I fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, I received news that Grandma had passed away during the night. Before her death, she had made a will, leaving all of the household's inheritance to me, including Peterson, which the late Mr. Peterson had founded himself. In her letter, she explicitly stated that it was to be left to me, alone. Grandma was utterly disheartened, and resolved to die. The family assistant sighed on the phone. "Mr. David, please come over and see," before she died. Grandma left instructions that the second daughter and Arthur are not allowed into the mourning hall, nor are they permitted to observe mourning rituals. When I arrived, devoted family members were kneeling everywhere in the mourning hall. Only knelt alone outside the door, her face numb, her eyes vacant, like a lifeless piece of driftwood. Arthur whispered something to her beside her, but she remained unresponsive. The family assistant said that Grandma refused to look at her again until her last breath. As I walked past her, she suddenly tugged at my clothes, her voice hoarse and bewildered. "David, I regret it." Arthur froze, then his face hardened as he looked at me. "Are you satisfied now? I thought you were honest and decent, but who knew you so manipulative? You tricked Eleanor into divorcing you, and she still can't forget you." I looked at his furious face, suddenly curious. "What standing do you have to accuse me? Eliza's husband? Eleanor's brother-in-law? Or Eleanor's new husband?" I looked at his pale face, feeling no satisfaction, only irony. "You've proposed marriage to Eleanor, haven't you? She didn't agree, did she?" Before I could say more, Sophia suddenly rushed out. "Did you say something to Grandma? Why did she suddenly pass away and leave instructions forbidding my mom and uncle from observing mourning rituals? Dad, why do you have such a grudge against Uncle?" I looked at her coldly. "It's not that I have a grudge against him, it's him who has constantly tried to force Eleanor and me to divorce." I opened my phone, and in front of everyone, played the text messages Arthur had secretly sent me over the years, from the time Sophia was born until now. For over 20 years, he had criticized me daily, saying I wasn't good enough for Eleanor, subtly and overtly pressuring me to divorce. Eleanor comes from a privileged background with exceptional abilities. She should marry a man of outstanding intellect and elegant demeanor, not you, a mediocre male housekeeper who can't do anything but chores. You're just an ordinary man. You can't offer Eleanor any support, nor can you provide Sophia with any resources. If you loved them, you should leave voluntarily. They deserve a better husband and father. The text messages ranged from initial subtle undermining to outright sarcasm. Seeing these text messages again, my heart still felt painfully suppressed. For so many years, over 10,000 days and nights, these words had kept me tossing and turning sleeplessly. Many times, I truly wondered if I was really that worthless, unworthy of being Eleanor's husband, unworthy of being Sophia's father. How is that possible? Uncle, Sophia couldn't believe it, that the gentle, kind elder she held in such high regard could secretly be just like this. Even snapped out of her daze, asking him in disbelief, as if seeing Arthur for the first time. So all those pretenses of gentleness and kindness were lies to deceive me. Is this your true self? I couldn't interfere in the argument between Eleanor, Sophia, and Arthur, nor did I care to. After handling Grandma's funeral arrangements, I prepared to go home. Before I left, Eleanor called out to me, again, "David." I turned to look at her. Her hair was disheveled, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her always impeccable professional attire now hung loosely on her frame. Walking on the street, she no longer had the gentle elegance of a university professor. Whether you believe it or not, Arthur and we never crossed any lines. I believed it, even if Eleanor hadn't explained. I knew nothing had ever truly happened between her and Arthur. Years ago, the household members were traveling, when they encountered a car accident. In that critical moment, Eliza, the adopted daughter, desperately shielded Eleanor. Later, the car rolled and fell off a cliff. Eliza died on the spot, but Eleanor's life was saved because someone had cushioned her fall. Arthur always claimed that my presence was what kept him and Eleanor apart, but that wasn't true. What truly stood between them was Eliza's death. Eliza died saving her, and Arthur, as Eliza's surviving spouse, would never have taken that step, no matter how much Eleanor loved him. "David, can we remarry?" She looked at me hesitantly, apologizing in a low, humble voice for the first time, without realizing it. I had grown accustomed to your presence after you left. My constant time with Arthur brought no joy, only torment. My feelings for him had long vanished with Eliza's death, leaving only the stubborn attachment from my first love. The one I truly love is you. David, please forgive me. Can we start over? No. How can you try to erase 30 years of my pain with just one apology? After that meeting, I completely severed ties with Eleanor. Life continued uneventfully until one night. Sophia, drunk, called me. Leo is used to being with you. When he couldn't find you, he cried all night, his little face turning red. We hired 3 housekeepers, but none of them could manage him. I have to go to the company during the day, so there was no choice but to have Uncle watch him. He's never taken care of a child before. I was only gone for half a day, and Leo got scolded and ended up in the hospital. She rambled on and on over the phone. Dad, please come back. Seeing my silence, she suddenly grew angry. Why exactly did you divorce? My mom never wronged you. Are you going to abandon me too? So, she knew I loved her. Sophia, do you remember you once gave me a pair of rubber gloves? Her voice faltered. She didn't understand why I suddenly brought that up. What rubber gloves? She clearly didn't remember, but I did. My hands used to get severely chapped hands, dry and cracked every winter. Every time I washed dishes, the dish soap would get into the wounds, causing excruciating pain. Unable to bear it any longer, I once suggested buying a dishwasher. After all, the household wasn't short on money. Arthur vetoed it. He casually stated that machines weren't as clean as manual washing, so I washed dishes for over 20 years. Tape was wrapped around my hands again and again, but every time they got wet, the stinging pain was still there. Later, I mustered the courage to bring it up with Sophia. The next day happened to be Father's Day. She gave me a pair of rubber gloves for washing dishes. Dad, this is your Father's Day gift. Now your hands won't hurt anymore. She put the gloves into my arms, then she turned and presented a Maybach to Arthur. Uncle, in my heart, you've long been just like my biological father. Even today, I remember the feeling of loss and helplessness from that day. She was the child I had raised with my own hands. But in her heart, she had never truly respected me. In fact, she looked down on me, because I lacked education, because I wasn't remarkable, because I was always willing to bear burdens without complaint. So in Sophia's mind, I didn't need to celebrate Father's Day, and my efforts weren't worth remembering. You asked me why I divorced. I'll tell you, it's because you've never respected me. Perhaps they cared about me, a little due to our constant interaction, but they definitely never held me in high regard. Dad, I am sorry. The phone call ended abruptly. After I left, Leo had no one to care for him. Without me tirelessly working day and night like a tireless worker, Eleanor and Sophia, accustomed to a life of luxury, couldn't possibly care for a young child. He couldn't be disciplined easily, and he'd cry loudly at the slightest disturbance, crying day and night. The household was on the verge of a nervous breakdown from the ordeal. Arthur was the first to snap, and he moved out. That left Eleanor and Sophia struggling to cope with the child, living a miserable life. Ultimately, I still felt pity for the child. After some thought, I suggested that Sophia contact Leo's biological father. Sophia was initially unwilling. Their divorce had been incredibly messy. They fought tooth and nail over child custody, repeatedly swearing they'd never have contact again. After the divorce, Sophia wouldn't even let her ex-husband see the child. Eventually, I couldn't stand it anymore, and secretly took Leo to meet his father. When found out, she even had a fight with me. When saw I was truly determined not to back down, she finally couldn't hold out and sent the child to his father. With his biological father, Leo's emotional state stabilized significantly, and he no longer cried and fussed at the slightest provocation. Sophia's ex-husband even came specifically to thank me when he found out. Uncle, thank you. Rest assured, I've had a vasectomy. I promise Leo will be my only child. When he's a little older, I'll bring him to visit you. I smiled and agreed, then immediately divided the assets Vivian had left me into 2 parts. The inheritance Vivian left was substantial, truly demonstrating in my hands what it meant to have enough money to last 10 lifetimes. The money I received from Sophia was enough for my lifetime expenses. As for the inheritance, I divided it into 2 parts, 80% for my grandson, Leo, to be managed by a trust until he comes of age. The other 20%, I donated to various universities in my name. There was no other motive. it was purely for doing good deeds. After handling all these matters, I began preparing to open a bakery. Having spent decades working around kitchen counters, this wasn't a difficult task for me. My next-door neighbor, Brenda, offered to invest when she heard, but I declined. Brenda was a friend I met in a tour group. She lost her husband early on and was left with 3 young children. For the sake of her 3 children, she never remarried, working hard her entire life to raise them. She's a very kind person, and had some feelings for me, but I had no intention of remarrying. After I explained things clearly to Brenda, she said she understood. Once the bakery was prepared and opened, my life settled into a routine. I heard news about the again through Sophia's ex-husband. After had a falling out with the Peterson father and daughter, he chose to quit his job and move far away. We later lost touch, and I don't know where he went. Eleanor's ending was the most regrettable. She blamed herself for Vivian's death, believing she had angered her own mother to death. From then on, she never recovered, drinking heavily every night. Eventually, she suffered a sudden heart attack after one night of heavy drinking. By the time the ambulance arrived, she had already passed away. After his death, Sophia suddenly started making frequent phone calls to me. At first, I answered briefly out of politeness, but later, when the bakery's business boomed, I didn't have time to deal with her. She is my biological daughter, and it wouldn't come to severing ties, but I also couldn't genuinely treat her as I had before. From now on, we'd simply interact as relatives, sending greetings on holidays, keeping our distance and maintaining a neutral relationship.